Hi everybody, welcome to this evening's webinar for primary age children. Before we make a start, we just want to do a quick poll just so we can find out who our audience is. So are you an educator, a parent or carer, or are you both or other? Including the other, are you a child maybe? Because obviously we want to reach out to our children as well. Just a very quick introduction about myself. I'm a dyslexia specialist. I have completed the level 5 training course, so I'm now a dyslexia specialist tutor. I can assess for dyslexia as well, so I've completed my level 7. And before I worked at the BDA, I worked in secondary schools for about 14 years. So I've got quite a lot of experience with working with children and teenagers who are dyslexic or neurodiverse. So we're just waiting for the results from our poll. So we have 46% of educators, 28% as parents and carers, both are 22% and others are 4%. Welcome to all of you. This is what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to give you an understanding of dyslexia, but I really want to talk to the children as well. And they will probably be asking what is the best way for me to learn and how can I demonstrate my knowledge instead of writing? And then, of course, what about SATs? So we're going to talk about all of this evening. So I want to give you an understanding of dyslexia. If you've been to any of my webinars before, you'll probably have seen some of this information. But just as a recap for you and to go into a little bit of detail for anybody that hasn't seen my webinars before, we would always want to start off on a positive. There is around 1 in 10 children in your school who are dyslexic. If you think of a class size of 30, there's going to be at least 3, maybe more. It does affect both boys and girls, and it does run in the family. So if you are wondering if you are dyslexic or if any of your students or children are dyslexics, then have a look at the wider family tree and find out if anybody else has the same difficulties as you. This is a video from the BDA. It helps to explain what dyslexia is and what it feels like. Tell me what you think of this.
Your brain is amazing, and nobody else has one quite like it. Although everybody's brain looks the same, they all work differently from each other. Just as we all have different colour skin, hair, and eyes, we all have a brain that's individual to us. Like a fingerprint, we have different personalities, tastes, strengths, and weaknesses. Our brains can even see and understand the world in different ways. One of those ways is called dyslexia, which affects how the brain handles information it sees and hears. Dyslexic people may find it difficult to match letters to sounds, and to remember how to spell words. They may even see letters moving around when they're reading. They might have trouble telling left from right. Remembering lots of instructions can be especially hard. They may need more thinking time to remember the right word.
Chicken! No, wait. Duck!
As well as memorizing sequences. It may be difficult for them to hold a pencil and to write by hand. Even organizing themselves can be difficult. But everyone with dyslexia is different. It can affect how people feel about themselves. When they struggle with a task that other people find easy, they may feel frustrated, angry, or sad. Some dyslexic people try to hide their difficulties because they are worried about what others will think of them. However, thinking differently can be a really good thing. A person with dyslexia may be very good at seeing patterns and solving problems, imagining and rotating objects in their heads, telling stories and making people laugh, taking things apart, understanding how they work, and figuring out how to put them together again. inventing, drawing, painting, and making things. Seeing the bigger picture. Dyslexic people can do a lot of things. They just might do them in a different way to how others would, and many of them have even become famous for it. There have been many famous dyslexic inventors, writers, scientists, business people, astronomers, paleontologists, actors, cooks, singers, artists, architects, and so on. Dyslexic people have changed the world. See dyslexia differently.
So I hope you see that as a very positive. Thank you for the reactions. They're lovely. And when we talk to our children, we need to give them this positive message that being dyslexic can be really, really a great thing. Yes, you will have challenges with the literacy acquisition, but let's have a look at what some of these famous dyslexics have achieved.
So, you're dyslexic. Congratulations! You are part of a club of some pretty extraordinary people. Here's a roundup of some of our favourites. Albert Einstein, Keira Knightley, Tom Cruise, Jamie Oliver, Whoopi Goldberg, Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of IKEA, the comedian Marcus Brigstock, Sally Gardner, she's an author who sold over 2 million copies of her books in the UK alone. Oh, and Roald Dahl, Will Smith, Johnny Depp, Prince Harry, Orlando Bloom, leading space scientist and presenter, Dr. Maggie Adarin Pocock, Walt Disney, Henry Winkler, aka Mr. Rock in the CBBC series Hank, Winston Churchill, the famous artist Picasso, Richard Branson, OBE, and Steve Jobs, founder of Apple. Oh, and me. I'm on the left. Okay, I'm not famous, but I am a director, and I've worked with a few people you might just recognise. So, with 10% of the population having dyslexia, you are part of a rather incredible bunch. Congratulations.
So we need to give this positive message to our children who are really struggling sometimes with their literacy skills. Being dyslexic will give you these really positive strengths, the ability to visualize, and as you could see in the first video, sometimes very often sometimes and very often, scratch that, sometimes in 3D. Practical and problem solving skills, that lateral thinking, being able to see the bigger picture, good visual spatial awareness, that creativity to think outside of the box, good verbal communication often, and high levels of motivation and persistence. And what I want you to be to parents and carers and teachers, I need you to be aware of this high level motivation and persistence, because this is where the masking comes in. This is when there is lots and lots of input, but there is not a lot of output. And what you may not notice is the work that our children do in school takes a huge amount of effort. So if it is the same amount of output, it's because they might have worked maybe 3 or 4 times harder than their friends in the classroom. And so sometimes you don't notice that they are actually struggling, but if you put in the support, they would absolutely fly. On the screen, you can see Lizzie Acker. She is one of our ambassadors at the British Dyslexia Association. She completed the British Bake Off in 2021. She's used her popularity to help to promote dyslexia and worked with us. And she's a fantastic role model for our younger dyslexic learners. Oops. Your brain, when your brain works, we have 2 sides of our brain. Clever scientists have found that the left side of the brain is responsible for skills like logic, sequencing, maths, remembering facts and words. It's a bit like a computer, I guess. The right side is responsible for things like imagination, holistic thinking, that mindfulness, intuition or questioning, understanding those non-verbal clues. For example, understanding when somebody is happy, when you see them smile. It's also responsible for that visualization. Um, we use both of our sides of our brains and we use all the skills in our own unique way. And many people with dyslexia use their right side more than their left. When we learn to read and write, we do use our left side of the brain, and it kind of lights up the areas that are being used. Some statistics that I want the adults around to be aware of as well. There is 1 in 3 adults in prison that are dyslexic, and it's suggested that it's because they have a different way of learning. Now, as adults, as parents and carers, we have a responsibility to try and change that statistic on the left. It might be that, some of the learners in the past have been a little bit like a square peg in a round hole. They don't seem to fit in the normal, traditional way of teaching. And if we can get it right, we can also influence the right side of statistics. There are 40% of self-made millionaires who are dyslexic, and that's because they have a different way of thinking. And those people that have surrounded those individuals have really let them flourish and use their unique thinking skills to be able to achieve that. So, as educators, we have a responsibility to be able to adapt and be inclusive so that everybody can flourish within their education system. So, kids, when we're learning to read and write, we use the left side of the brain. Non-dyslexic learners do this in the classroom without much difficulty, but for those of you who are dyslexic, you need a multisensory approach to that. When we are using these areas of the brain, they kind of, you imagine it as they light up. If as dyslexics, if you are only using 1 or 2 of that parts of that brain, there is not many lights on that left side when we are learning to read. Another really important part of the brain is the cerebellum, which is right at the back of the brain. What the cerebellum does, it looks at the lights that are flashing in the parts of the brain, and it gets ready to build those neural pathways. Now, imagine a bridge being built on both sides. The cerebellum can build those neural pathways, and it builds the bridge on both sides until eventually it meets in the middle, it fuses, and it becomes completely automatic. And that's regardless of any skill. So it might be that you are learning the violin. It might be that you are learning new dance steps, or it might be that you're learning a new sport. Over time and practice, the cerebellum will build the bridges that the skills can meet in the middle. They fuse, they're completely automatic. So you don't have to think about that skill anymore. When we think about when you're learning to read, those people who are not dyslexic in your class, they have all of these lights on. The cerebellum recognizes that there's lots of lights on, there's lots of activity, and it builds the bridges without any difficulty. Because dyslexics use their right side of the brain more than their left, there's not as many triggers for the cerebellum, and so the bridges aren't built quite as well as what we'd like. So it's a bit like throwing a rope. You can't actually quite see where you're throwing it. And unless you use more than one sense at a time, you're not going to be able to build these bridges. Dyslexics also have a difficulty with their memory shelf. We all have a memory shelf at the front of our brains. Dyslexics can typically hold on to about 2 or 3 books. Non-dyslexics maybe 7 or 8. If you add too many on for a dyslexic brain, they'll all just drop off. If you give something as an image, that is a lighter book to hold on to. And so you can hold on to these images much easier on the shelf. They don't drop off as quickly. If you get stressed, that wipes everything off the memory shelf, leaving it completely empty. And you may notice this happen if children, if you are asked a question in class, you've not had time to prepare your answer, and your mind just goes completely blank. Well, what's happened is that stress has just knocked all of the books off of the memory shelf. So information processing as well is difficult. The left side of the brain is used for our academic activities. We know that. The right side is for the more creative activities. We also have a filing cabinet of knowledge on the left side of the brain, behind your left ear. And left brainers can find their knowledge really, really quickly, super fast. And it's a bit like driving down a motorway with no cars. There's nothing to stop you. The right side of the brain, however, if you're trying to find the information in your filing cabinet of knowledge, it's a bit like driving down the scenic route. It takes a little bit longer. And it's not to say that you're not going to find that information. It just takes a little bit longer. And so all of this is going to lead our children to feel a bit emotional. So they get frustrated. And because other children make it look really easy to read and write, they might not be able to explain why they're frustrated. And so consequently, what happens is they get criticized for their surface behavior. Okay. It might be that they become really sad. They're using a lot more brain power than the other children in the classroom. It's really, really tiring, and it can make them look really sad or withdrawn. But once they begin to understand themselves, and as educators, we're all responsible for helping them do this, they can love the things that they are good at. They can really focus on it. And we need to help them to be able to do this. Understand what makes them frustrated, try and put support in there. Understand what makes them really exhausted and really sad, and put the support in there. But of course, to keep everything balanced, we need to look at what they are good at and really, really focus on that. So what is the best way for dyslexics to learn? You may have heard of this already. Multisensory teaching is actually really important for our dyslexic learners. We take in information through a number of different sensory channels, or we call them modalities. There are a number of modalities that we use, but for literacy learning, the important ones are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And a multisensory approach means that each piece of information is available to each modality. And the more ways that we use to take in and process that piece of information, the more successful we are likely to be in effective processing, retaining and recalling that information. But even better is to link 2 or more of these modalities. And the more links that are made, the stronger the message is going to be. The better way, the better the messages for your learners to remember. And this diagram really shows the different ways that we can use to layer on all of these multisensory techniques. So using at least 2 of your senses to learn something new will help to kind of switch on these areas of the brain, encourage the cerebellum to make these bridges. So if you write something, you would say it at the same time. Or it might be that you watch something and listen at the same time. Or it might be that you talk about something and move at the same time as well. This is another quick video just to explain about this multisensory way of teaching and how it doesn't have to be incredibly difficult for our teachers and parents and carers to adapt what it is that the children are learning.
Creating lessons that engage all learners' needs does not have to be difficult. This is where multisensory learning comes in. Multisensory learning is learning using multiple senses. So your sight, your taste, your smell, your hearing, and your touch. However, there are 4 primary learning pathways to the brain: auditory, visual, tactile, and kinesthetic. A true multisensory lesson will include all 4 of these learning pathways. Multisensory learning is particularly helpful for students with learning and attention issues. However, it can really benefit all learners. When multiple senses are stimulated, information is more likely to be retained and integrated, as each student has a unique learning style governed by the most dominant sense. By using a multisensory approach to learning, you are likely to meet the individual needs of the learner or group. Not all learning activities allow for all of the sensory systems to be stimulated. However, it is possible to add at least one additional sense to each activity. Tapping into all learning pathways while teaching helps ensure that new knowledge is moved from short-term to long-term memory. This can increase your potential for a successful learning outcome.
So the importance of multisensory learning then. We traditionally only, as we think about the journey for our children all the way through from nursery through to primary, as we introduce them in nursery, they learn through all of their modalities, don't they? They use all of their senses and they learn through play. As they move through, as they start to learn literacy, it's still very multisensory. But as the child grows and gets a little bit older, they move up into the primary classrooms, and they're expected to just sit and listen and watch for the majority of the teaching. And what happens is this kind of teaching doesn't stimulate the different parts of the dyslexic brain that learners need to be stimulated. And consequently, there are gaps appear in their learning. If we continue with that multisensory way of teaching right the way through, then they're going to be able to, they may not be completely automatic because of their dyslexia, but they will be able to create their own strategies. They will be able to read and write. It might not be for pleasure, but they will be able to continue to do that because the brain is really got quite a lot of plasticity, they call it, and they will be able to improve, providing that you layer on all of these different parts of multisensory teaching. So I had a look at our sponsors website today, and it's called Literacy Gold. This is something that that caught my eye was that it also includes eye control. It works on phonological awareness, phonics, and vocabulary as you would normally expect. Eye control can be difficult because of visual difficulties or visual stress. It might be classed as Mia-Zerlin syndrome, scotopic sensitivity. They all kind of mean the same thing. And what we need to do is if that is the case, we do need to improve our the eye control of our learners. It might be that they are not dyslexic and they just have visual difficulties. So it's something to be aware of. So have a look at Literacy Gold's website. They are our sponsors this evening. It's worth having a look at. What I want to do is to give you children some ideas on how to demonstrate your knowledge other than writing, because very often our teachers get us to write, don't they? And this is for also our educators as well. It's important for them to focus. Very often you might notice that there are lots of overlap between different neurological conditions. It might be that they have ADHD or beyond the autistic spectrum. And the ability to focus is sometimes very difficult if they're in a full classroom of all of the other children. If it's possible, allow them a focus area, maybe on a one-to-one basis, if we're lucky enough to have the staff. If you're working at home, try to dedicate a space at home if that is possible as well. If not, maybe have a look at your local library or an after-school homework club. When you are learning, keep it to short bursts of learning or writing. And remember that our dyslexic learners will become exhausted really, really quickly. We also need to remember that they are having challenges with their auditory processing, their visual processing as well. So we need to connect the auditory, the visual, and the kinesthetic way of teaching. And if remembering as well, when we are teaching something, it might be that they're learning something new. If they are learning a new sound, for example, then when they are learning the new sound, they write it, they say it at the same time. All of the activities that our dyslexics do should never be a silent activity. They need to layer on all of these different senses. So most homework or class activities involve writing, which can be particularly difficult for our dyslexic learners. When we're differentiating tasks, it's really helpful. And then it allows them to demonstrate their knowledge in a format that they are comfortable with. And what I've come up with is some ideas on how you can still gather the evidence, but let them feel comfortable in a way that is suitable for them to demonstrate their knowledge. Very often what you'll notice for some dyslexics who mask it really well is that they are very good at talking. They have fantastic communication, oracy communication skills. And one of their strategies that I know of is to engage the teacher, the educator in lots of conversations, because what happens is they know that there's probably just an hour for the lesson, and the more that they engage, there's less and less time for them to actually work. So let's have a look at some alternative ideas to try and help them become engaged with the lesson and really want to become involved. You may have seen Deco Comics before. And Deco Comics is actually created by somebody who was dyslexic himself, who was in his GCSE revision years. And he realized that he was better at demonstrating his knowledge or revising his knowledge in the comic form. It really does allow that creativity and the ability to showcase what they know. If you go on their website, he has now focused his comics on Key Stage 2, I believe, and all of the knowledge is in there. And so, for example, I remember one, he talks about the carbon footprint. And so he drew a picture, a big, dirty, big cloud in the shape of a foot, ready to stamp on the earth. And so it's just visualization like that sometimes would be really, really helpful to get the message across that some teachers want to teach. But for somebody who wants to demonstrate their knowledge, if they're able then to rather than write, they want to draw their knowledge, you might want to do something like this, something like a comic strip. There's lots and lots of comic strip templates on the internet. And you can a lot of them are, you can download for free. And what you can do then is to hand them out to the whole class so that everybody can have a go. And the work doesn't feel like it's being differentiated for our dyslexic learners. They don't feel singled out then. And it might be that you find this is a better way for them to express themselves. And so something like this might be really encouraging for them. Introducing audio clips as well. You know, podcasts are really popular nowadays, but it's a fairly new concept to some of our teaching staff and to some of our schools that this might be a more preferred way of demonstrating the knowledge because like we've mentioned already today, some of our dyslexic learners have better oracy skills than they have literacy skills. Some might argue that handwriting knowledge in a book is the only way to provide evidence of progress, but we are in a digital age. We have transcription services that is commonplace in the world of work. And if we nurture these skills in school, then we are really preparing them for adulthood. Not only that, we're working on our oracy skills as well as tapping into exactly what it is that they know. So with regards to audio clips, there's lots and lots of ways of recording them and sending them as voice clips digitally. The trick is to find a way that's user-friendly for both the child and the teacher. Obviously, you have your own school systems. It might be that you're using Google Classrooms. It might be that you use Microsoft Teams or a different system. But it is actually really easy these days to drop in a clip, an audio clip or a video clip, and then transfer it as a link so that the teacher then will be able to see the evidence. All of these links that I'm talking about, by the way, is on a resource that you will be sent with the recording of this. So don't worry that you're not going to be able to find everything that I'm talking about today. And then, of course, transcription of audio clips. Many apps can be downloaded for free and they will transcribe what you speak. Smartphones have this accessibility built into them. And then what you can do with this is you can print it or email it to the school as evidence of the work completed. It might be that teacher prints that out and sticks it in the book. Or even if you wanted to, you can use it as, with some software and create a podcast. So all of these different ways of verbally telling your knowledge actually gives our learners an equal footing. You're removing that barrier. You're crashing down the wall that is stopping them from telling teacher how how much they know. So there's lots of different ways. As the children get older, they will need to still work on their handwriting skills. It might be that they still need to handwrite the answers in their books. But what you can use the technology for is to capture the information, use the audio clip icon to speak into your notes page on your smartphone or your gadget. If you've not got a smartphone, don't worry, you can still use things like sticky notes. And what I used to get my children to do was to mind dump. And it's almost like you're just opening the door and it's all tumbling out in loads of different random orders. And each idea that you have, you put on a sticky note. And then once you've got all of your mind clear of everything that you want to talk about in your piece of work, you can then rearrange it on your sticky notes and then you can write it out loud, write it in your book. If you're able to do all of this on an audio clip, have it read aloud and then copy what your ideas into your book. And then that helps you with your memory. Your memory shelf will be too full to be able to remember it all at the same time. And so that's a different way of using technology. And it might be that you're able to do that within your classroom. And yes, it will take a little bit more time, but at least you will then have all of the ideas that's in your head onto all of the sticky notes, or into the audio clip, and you'll be able to rearrange them as you need to. Now, there are some of our children who are fantastic at presenting. They are very confident in front of an audience, and they would be really happy to create a presentation to demonstrate their knowledge. And if this is the case, encourage it. You know, many dyslexic learners just need to have an image in their head to trigger their knowledge, and then they can freestyle with what they know. And again, it gives them the confidence that they need to be able to improve on their oracy skills. They don't have to write a huge amount on their presentation. They just need to write, to have images sometimes, or just a little bit of writing to encourage them to remember the information in the right order. So, you know, any budding little children who would, you know, want to present the weather, for example. It might be that they want to practice their presentation skills in front of the class. Now, lots of our dyslexic learners can actually see things in 3D in their heads. And what they prefer to do is to demonstrate by making a model. And in this instance, this example is a Motte and Bailey castle. And this kind of thing would be perfect for them. And if you ask them to explain everything that they've made, they would probably be able to talk about every little aspect of the model rather than writing it down. They might be able to tell you how they made it, the reasons why there's a higher layer and a lower layer, who would live in the top layer, who would live in the bottom layer, and it would be proper evidence for their knowledge if they can talk about everything that they have made and the reasons why they've made it. So building a model to help with their oracy skills again would sometimes be, you know, really beneficial for our learners. There's always a computer genius in the group, isn't there? And especially, you know, the little ones these days pick up computer skills super fast. Pivot Animator is something that I found, and we used to use it in my old school in year 7. If they're into animations, why not allow them to demonstrate what they know using this? And of course, we need to remember as well to have them keep it in a very quick and concise way. Because, you know, we need to make it a quick and easy process. They shouldn't spend too much time on one project. The idea is to make school and homework tasks accessible for them. And it might be that, you know, they're able to use this to help them explain or put a sequence together of a story that they've remembered. It might be something to do with like the water cycle or something like that. These might be a way of opening the doors to unlock all of the knowledge in their little heads. And it's just, again, it's just a different way of expressing their knowledge. And again, all of these links are going to be sent to you. Some people say to me, spelling tests or not spelling tests. What I would say is when a random list of words are given to our learners for a weekly spelling test, it's not helpful for our dyslexic learners. They, you know, at best they will remember how to spell them for the test, but what they haven't learned is the spelling rules and the spelling groups, because what they're doing is literally just trying to remember a sequence of letters, but they don't go into the deeper meaning or the morphology. They don't go into the etymology. They don't go into the spelling rules. And so they're not able then to transfer the skills from the spelling test into their normal work. Instead, they need to learn in groups of sounds. You probably know this already, teachers, but different ways of doing spelling tests could be, don't call it a spelling test. You might want to call it a quiz. It might be that you want to give them a not a word search, a crossword. It might be that you give them the right letters in wooden letters or Scrabble letters, and ask them to create that word by moving those letters around. And so it's just a different layer of multisensory rather than holding the pen and having to remember the correct sequence of letters. Looking at it as in sounds. So single sounds or groups of letters that make one sound. What I used to do with some of mine is I had Scrabble letters. I used to teach 7 and 8s. But the digraphs and the trigraphs I would glue together just to give them a helping hand to let them know that those 3 letters combination will make one sound. And so it might be something like this. So for example, the IGH would be glued together in the Scrabble letters. And then I would give them an L and a T and give them the clue to put the letters together, the word together. And so it's about creating a different way, just looking at it from their point of view, removing those barriers of having to write. Because don't forget, sometimes if they have dyspraxia as well, then they're going to find it really difficult to hold on to that pen. So we're going to try and do everything we can to remove that barrier of that physically holding onto the pen could be really quite difficult. Oh, so what about SATs? So by year 6, kids, if you've used the strategies that I've highlighted today all the way through your primary school and you get the right support from your teachers and your parents and carers, by the time that you reach year 6, hopefully you will have developed a lot of strategies for surviving these tests. But honestly, don't worry about them too much. What you need to remember is that they don't test how kind you are. They don't test how good you are at sports. They don't test what a good friend you can be. And more schools are now using technology to help with the reading text. Ask your school if they can help with that too. So you've got things like converting it to a digital copy, a scan, and using text-to-speech technology. So you might want to use something like that. It might be that you want to try a reading pen to help you with some of the big words. And these are not connected to the internet. And so you should be able to use those. Give them some extra time as well to make sure that you use them as your normal way of working and not just for the test. It's important to have a go and have a try of it and see if that can help you too. So how can the BDA help? So for parents and carers and teachers, our website is our greatest resource. If you do need help, if you're working together with your child and you want to look for some information, this icon here will help you to it will give you accessibility to the website. So if you click on that, it will read it out for you. You can change the font and the background and so on. But there's lots and lots of information on the website that you might want to be able to find. And we do have a helpline. So please do call us if you can. If you're unable to call us, then we do have an email or we have our social media. And, please do get in touch. These, the phone lines and the helpline is operated by experts in the field, and we're here to help you. Or it might be that you want to be a volunteer. We have lots of local dyslexia associations up and down the country. We are looking for more. So if you want to create your own hub and you think there's a need in your area, then please do get in touch. And hopefully by gathering professionals and parents who need support together, it's always good to talk, isn't it? And that's it for me for now. Nikki, we've got about 10 minutes left for questions and discussions.
We have very well timed. Brilliant. Thank you, Amanda. It's really great tips there. We have got some questions, so I'm going to crack on and try and get through a few. We've got, understandably, a few questions about assessments. So the first question I've got is about what is the best age, and if they do test for dyslexia at that time and they find out they are dyslexic, would you recommend, how would you recommend that they inform the child of that? Or do you not inform the child of that?
Okay, so first of all, before the age of assessing, it's usually about 7 or 8, depending on the child. We can't do it before that because the test that we use, the children wouldn't be able to cope with the amount of information or what we are asking them to do. So their brain isn't really developed properly. What you can do before that time is the BDA have a questionnaire, a checklist on the website that you might want to find. And it's basically just giving you the ideas of whether the child at a very young age could be dyslexic. Around about the age 5 or 6, you might want to give them a screener. Some schools have a screener, and that will give you a probability of whether the child is going to be dyslexic or not. As well, it's important to remember as well that there might be other factors that suggest that they're not got the literacy skills the same level as their peers. So it's worth bearing that in mind as well. It might be that the child has missed a bit of school because they've been poorly, or they've had a house move, and there's lots of different things that might be because of that. When you are ready to assess the child, it's important to be open and honest with them, because they will have a feeling that there is something different, because they will be able to see it themselves, and it might be that their behavior becomes they are frustrated and they are misunderstood. And I would give them the positive spin, because it is a positive by being dyslexic. And I've tried to convey that message this evening. So yes, have a very honest conversation with them. Tell them that congratulations, you are dyslexic. You've got a fantastic right side of the brain. But you might just have to work a little bit harder on your literacy skills, but we're going to help you with that. And that's how I would suggest to approach it.
Yeah, I know that's a lovely way to handle it as well. And actually on that, so we've got another person asking a question about, are there different degrees, varying degrees of dyslexia? Could you be very dyslexic or slightly dyslexic? And if so, does the education system deal with that differently, or are you just sort of classified as dyslexic, so you need help with certain things?
There will be varying degrees, but a lot of that is to do with their experiences, and the way that the brain is created. It's genetic, so it might be that part of the family has a difficulty in spelling, whereas another person in the family will find it very, very difficult to spell and to read. So there is that variety. What I would suggest is the multisensory teaching will be consistent all the way through, regardless of the severity. So you still need that multisensory teaching. It might be that one person might need more support than the other. Some might need a very, very structured, cumulative, one-to-one teaching to be able to do these literacy difficulties. But with the right support, they will be able to overcome their literacy difficulties. The brain is an amazing organ, and they call it plasticity. It's got lots of plasticity. You can overcome all of these difficulties, providing the schools and parents and carers are able to support them in the right way.
Brilliant. Thanks, Amanda. We've got a couple of questions that are very similar, so we're going to try and cover both of these. But if you believe your child in primary school is dyslexic, but nothing's being picked up at school, or there's been no mention of it at school, who should a parent talk to at the school, and how should they start that conversation to see what can be done, because maybe the teacher hasn't noticed, or maybe it's a new teacher. And what should they do about that? How should they engage in that first conversation?
So talk to the teacher initially, explain what your observations are and ask if they have had the same observations. If there is something that is running through the family, explain that as well. And then talk to the Senko as well to find out what kind of support, some additional classroom support can be is available. You can always, for those indicators, they are all on the website. So if you need evidence because maybe the teacher isn't dyslexia aware, then you can use that as a backup to say, this is what dyslexia is. This is what my child is demonstrating. I wonder if we could have a conversation just to discuss what kind of strategies you can put in. And it's about meeting in the middle, making sure that the child is at the center, but meeting in the middle to making sure that there is support at home as well as at school.
Brilliant, thank you. Got somebody asking, can you apply for an EHCP if your child is diagnosed as dyslexic and ADHD?
Well, I think so. I'm not an expert on the EHCPs. I will hold my hands up to that. But I have known people who are ADHD and who are dyslexic who do have an EHCP. I've worked with some children who have that. So I would say yes, go for it.
Brilliant, thank you. I know there is a lot more information on EHCPs on the website as well. So do have a look. There's lots of advice on there. We've got somebody saying, I was diagnosed with dyslexic tendencies and my son was diagnosed as visually dyslexic at primary. The primary school were amazing, but when we moved to secondary, they said that he wasn't dyslexic, which was a shame, and he then received no extra support or extra time in tests. What should they do if they feel that actually they should be getting the additional support? Is it the same thing as what you said earlier, that they need to go and speak to the Senkos? And
Yeah, if they've got a diagnosis of dyslexia, they've got dyslexia. You can't take away that diagnosis. The school can't turn around and say, no, you haven't got it. But what's happened, what I'm guessing has probably happened, is that the child has gained their own strategies, so much so that they are not the worst in the class, and they are not demonstrating these classic dyslexia tendencies because they've had such good support all the way through primary school. What we need to remember is that support needs to continue to make sure that they have an equal opportunity to get their qualifications the same as everybody else. So I would go in and have a conversation, and maybe, the school needs more dyslexia awareness training, and I'm here for that.
brilliant.
Book
Thank
me
you.
in.
I think we've got time for another couple of questions. So I've got somebody asking about what's the audio to text app you were talking about? They've got a teacher that's trying to make time to write down comments on an iPad, but she doesn't have a TA to help, so it's consuming. So what was the app you were talking about?
If you're using an iPad, there is the notes page. Or the audio clips. There is some quite really good inbuilt functions in iPads if you're using that in the classroom. But there's a plethora of them. If you go to the App Store, there's lots and lots of them that will take your audio clips and then forward them on. It might be that you forward them via email or WhatsApp or text message. There's lots and lots of ways to do that. If you're ever stuck, if you're looking for something particular, go to YouTube, because there's always a how-to video on every single app or piece of software on YouTube. So I'd definitely go there if you were getting stuck on anything.
Brilliant, thank you. And just one more question. Well, it's not one. We've got quite a few people asking about SATs and how they approach SATs, and is it possible for their very dyslexic child to do well in SATs, and any advice you could give on how to navigate, I suppose, for the child, how they get through that, when we know testing isn't always easy for a dyslexic child. But is there anything that a parent can do or hope to do when their child's going through the SATs?
And it is emotionally draining for the child, particularly if that is something that is, it's something that is they absolutely dread it, and my heart actually goes out to all of the dyslexic learners who really, really struggle in that situation. Um, there are things you might need to talk to the school to find out if they are able to use something like a scanning pen. There's one from Orcam that is very good. Um, there's another one from there's a company called Scanning Pens that they may be able to use in there. You can put your little headphones in and listen to the words. And it just gives them that equal footing. I know because I worked in secondary school, I know when they get by the time they get to GCSE, there is computer software, and they can ask for a digital exam, but I'm not 100% sure with SATs. But there's text help as well that where you can scan um, copies of tests and then put it on the computer, and the computer can read it aloud. Everybody is entitled to have access to that text to be able to answer the questions. And you can refer to the Equality Act of 2010 for that. Everybody should have the same equal opportunity to read that text. And it's about working with the schools, making sure that they're open to all of these new ideas, this new technology that we live in these days, just to give our dyslexic learners an equal opportunity to be able to get through that. But I would also focus on what they're good at, which are not in tests. They're not in the SATs test. It doesn't measure how kind you are, and it doesn't measure what a good friend you are, or how much of a carer you are, and how good you are at football. It's worth focusing on the things that they are very, very good at.
Yeah, thank you. That's a lovely way to wrap up this evening. Didn't manage to get through all the questions, but I will just remind everybody we do have a helpline, and that's exactly what they're there for. You can call in or you can email. So if we didn't get to your specific question, then do drop them a line and do just ask them, and we've got lots and lots of volunteers that actually can support you or navigate or tell you where to go on the website to get more information. Or if you're a school looking for more training or advice, then reach out, because that's exactly what they're there for. But we are going to have to wrap up. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Amanda, and to our sponsor tonight, Literacy Gold. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we do run lots of these free webinars. And we've got lots coming up in the next few months. The next one in this particular series is for secondary age children. So if you've got somebody going into secondary school, or perhaps doing GCSEs or needs some support, that's running on the 18th of November. And if you're actually an adult who is dyslexic that might want some support, we're running one for workplace on the 10th of December. But as I say, everything is on the website. Just do exactly like you did tonight. Go on the events page. You'll see all the free webinars. Just register as you did, and then hopefully we'll see you on another one. Or hopefully, we do run this series every term, so do spread the word. If you think other teachers might like to join, or other parents are also struggling that might want some advice, then do join these free webinars. Like I say, we do helpline ones as well, so take a look, see if there's something that you fancy, and then we'll hopefully see you on another one. But just to say thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you, Claudia, in the background, for doing all the comms. And hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar. Have a great evening, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye
Take
now.
care. Bye.